And welcome. This is Dr. Victoria Boyd. It is high noon, and I just started recording, and I see that Sherman just joined us. I am recording this so that we can share it with others. And welcome, Sherman Ray. How are you doing today? Yes, I just started recording because I want to be able to make this available. We are in the process of building out the nuts and bolts NPO training, uh, a,
Cool.
a program of the Black Business Chamber of Commerce and sponsored by the Philantrepreneur Foundation and Dr. Victoria Boyd. So today I was really going to ask questions of any attendees, but I'll format it so that they can actually send us questions later when we post this video and
Sure.
just get more information as it comes up.
Yeah.
Um, I really did not want to just jump out there and throw topics out there because I know what I want to do, but I
Uh-huh.
really think I need to ask the community what they need. And so
Sure.
that is how I really positioned what this meeting was going to be about. So I think I'll put it out there and just let it float for maybe a week or 10 days to see if we get some feedback. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we can also direct them to the Facebook page for the Black Chamber,
Yep.
and or they can send it directly to Philantrepreneur. So I'll start with just saying, if you have needs or discussion points that you want to bring to this forum, we will be meeting the second Tuesday from noon to 1 every month. It's already scheduled into my calendar, into the Zoom calendar, and it is on Facebook events. I need to build it out for all of the months, but I'll be putting it on the calendar, all of the different calendars that we use. So that's second Tuesday, 12 noon, high noon till 1 o'clock. we'll
High noon.
high
Yeah.
noon, high noon. We'll be here, I want to say, fielding questions and giving resources.
Yeah.
Uh, that's do you before we get started, do you have any questions that you might want to throw out there?
I don't yet. If I'm in and out, it's because I've got my phone, which you can't see, but it's like sitting right here looking at me, and I'm getting phone calls like all the time. So if I bow out, I'll mute my microphone so you
No
don't hear
problem.
me. But
Yeah,
other than that, I think it's gonna be good. Are you recording right now? As a matter of
I am
fact.
recording right this moment. Yes, we
Okay.
are.
Okay.
So this is
Um,
going to be a part of the presentations.
okay.
Because it is recorded, I think I'll keep the recording part close to about 15 minutes. I know people, adult learners, don't go a little bit more than that. I'm really cognizant of that because I'm doing my second edition of my WowWam book,
Mhm.
Webinar Secrets, that
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it to my editor this week. So I've been
Eh,
brain freeze trying to put that, but it's all about webinars and things like that,
Oh
and will be
yeah.
valuable to our nonprofit community
Sure.
out there. Uh,
Yes. So one thing I would love to say though is I want to thank you so much, Dr. Boyd, for doing this because you've got years and years of experience, and I think the people who are going to be listening to this are going to get more than they bargained for. And I think it's because you just have a wealth of knowledge.
well, thank
I
you.
know when we first met and we were talking, you were at UNLV when I first
Yeah,
met you,
yeah,
and you were doing some adjunct stuff there. And
yep.
so when we had the opportunity to have you be a part of the Black Business Chamber, we just jumped on the opportunity and said, you know what? If we're going to look for somebody who knows what they know about nonprofits, you would be the person. So once again, I just want to thank you for
Well,
being a
thank you,
part of
thank you.
this.
Yes, I was down at UNLV for about 9 years teaching nonprofit management, and many people don't know about that. Well, anyway, yes, I have a wealth of experience, actually, going back some 40 years. I was in the nonprofit sector back in Michigan before I even moved to Nevada. And
Mm,
it's interesting, some of the things I come across, and this might help people sort of formulate what they want to ask me or us of the chamber in terms of their needs. Was working with a client, in fact, still working with them, filing their 1023 application to get that 501c3 determination.
mhm.
And I often say, yeah, you can go to a lawyer or an accountant to file your paperwork, but you're not going to get the guidance and the understanding of the nonprofit sector. They're going to do paperwork. And perfect example is I have a client that's in Northern Nevada. They went to a lawyer to file their state application or their state articles of incorporation and wrote up all of this, I want to say legalese, long document, and then came to me to file the 1023. And literally I've had to go through and restructure all of their documents because they're not IRS compliant, and IRS is saying, no, we can't take this. And so they're now understanding that you need someone that has not just paperwork understanding, but what IRS wants. What are the compliance laws? And I'm disclaimer, I'm not an attorney, but I'm a nonprofit specialist. And so I can deal with board governance and fundraising. And those are what IRS looks for. What are you doing in the community? And you have to be able to state it in a way that they agree. So that's just one way that I could help people on this noon lunch and learn. Also, just looking at what are all of the different issues that nonprofit organizations face. And many of them think it all deals with fundraising. Oh, if we could just get some money, our problems would all be solved. Not.
Not.
Not. Yes, that fundraising element can help, but there's so many elements that support fundraising. Is your board a fundraising board? Do they know how to fundraise? Do they know their responsibilities? In fact, I have listed, I'm looking at a list, assessment. Do you do assessment so that when donors ask, well, what impact did you have last year? You actually have some data. Do you have all the tools and apps you need to do all of the different fundraising platforms? Do you do fundraising in the business community? Do you even know how to ask for money and what they're looking for?
Sure.
Are you looking at events? Do you know there's a lot of pros and cons about events? Because if you don't have staff and bandwidth to actually put on an event, it might not be something that you need to do. And then just your donations. Are you donor center? Do you look at grants, sponsorship language? Your program evaluation. If you go for any big grant, they want to know what is your evaluation and impact. And so you have to use the specific things. And then how do you even write a donor appeal letter so that you are, first of all, compliant with IRS, that you're not breaking state laws.
Yeah.
And that you just don't get on their nerves.
Well, so let me ask you a question on that too, because that's very interesting. We are going to do a golf tournament at the end of the year. And we already have somebody who's chairing the committee to begin to work on that. And that was one of the first questions she asked me about. She said, do you have a letter for the donors who are going to be doing this? And I said, well, really, because the interesting thing about it is that she actually put this forth and said, hey, I want to get this moving right now. We were waiting for at least another month before we started it. But since she asked that, and since you mentioned it, that's so I would assume that's a pretty big deal.
It's a big deal, yes, because there's different types of letters that you create. Or if she's going after sponsors for an event, those are called sponsorships. There's a different type of package. You put together actually a media kit or a sponsorship package that talks about, because you're going to businesses to help them with marketing. And so your language has to be marketing. If you're just doing a general appeal, please support us, there's no event attached to it, that terminology is different. You want to make sure that you don't mention things like it's going toward our education program. As soon as you say that, that makes that money restricted. You can only use it for education.
For that certain thing, sure.
For that within if you said it in that letter. So if your letter needs to be what is called a general appeal for your organization, and then you mention, and if you help us, we'll be able to support this, and that. But as soon as
that's a little more general.
It has to be general so that you can use it. And sometimes donors will still write in the memo area or say in a letter that I want all of my donation to go towards. And you have to, by law, honor
Sure.
that. You can't spend it any way you want to if a donor specifies. So it's important that you understand that. Don't cut your own throat by, putting certain language in a letter that
Hmm.
restricts it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's little details like that. Um, that are necessary. In a sponsor package, you're going to look at levels and the benefits and your impressions.
Yeah.
These are marketing terms. How many impressions will they have? Uh,
Mhm.
you can, like what I do is I'm on LinkedIn, which many
Yeah.
of us are. I'm in about 50 different groups that are,
Okay.
nonprofit, just a ton of different types of groups.
Yeah.
And so when I do some type of blast, if I put it in every one of the groups that I'm in, if I added up the number of people that are in those groups, my numbers come to almost 600,000
Sure.
impressions.
Sure.
And that's a number you can use because, yes, you can put it in there and say you're exposing it to 600,000 people. Do they see it?
And that's legit.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you can't control if they see it. That's just like with the newspaper and ads.
Sure.
Yeah, your ad is in the newspaper and it's distributed. Everybody doesn't look at every page of the newspaper, but
Sure.
it's still an impression. And
Yeah.
another great example is the billboards right on the intersection of 95 and 15, where the
Mhm.
spaghetti bowl is.
Uh-huh.
Those billboards that are in there, in just the morning traffic, there are over 157,000 views
Yeah.
of just people
Just
going
by
by,
people driving by. Sure.
driving, and that's just between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. So, you know, there's
Mhm.
different ways to build the value of your sponsorship package depending on how you create your marketing and sponsorship.
I wonder if that's why Facebook doesn't like you sharing things without paying them. Because I do the same sort of thing where I've built this pretty large network of little groups that I blast things out to,
Yeah.
and I do it based upon the number of people that are in the groups.
Yep.
And that way I can say, okay, in this morning, I can get out to 100,000 people pretty easily.
Yeah.
And Facebook doesn't like that
Yeah.
because,
They start, you've shared this too many times, yeah.
yes,
Yes.
or you broke at our community rules,
You get
which means,
slapped on the hand.
and you get to go to jail for 24 hours.
Yeah. So, yeah. So those are, especially in the sponsorship things, because most businesses in this day and age, they're not interested in going to some gala where they buy a table. That is just not um, a great return on investment from them. They want to see, who are you reaching and does it match our target audience? So even in that language, you have to show how their target audience or how you support their target audience find out about them. It's great to offer coupons from, like, stores and different things, because that means they get foot traffic.
Yeah.
And many people forget about asking, well, do you have maybe a special coupon for it? It doesn't cost them anything to distribute it.
Yeah.
And generally they have different discounts anyway, but it gets foot traffic into their location. And when you get a coupon, you don't go in there and buy just that one item.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Especially if they've got stuff at the checkout counter as
Yep.
you're going out there. I'm
Yep.
generally putting whatever is closest to me in my
Yep.
thing too.
If you make a trip into a store, you're going to buy other stuff. And so they're
Yeah.
looking at that advantage. And you can talk about foot traffic and things, but those all have to be mapped out based on when is the event, what's the number you're anticipating to attend, who are the target audience, are they their ideal customer. All of those are details that could go
Sure.
into all of that information. Absolutely.
Well, it's very cool. It's funny. So let me ask you about nonprofits, because we're a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
And there are definitely some rules that we have to follow as far as, what do they mean by not being able to make a profit? I mean, what is that?
That's not true. Okay.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
Nonprofit that's a misinterpretation of name. There's no such term in or with IRS as nonprofit. You're
Mhm.
actually a for-purpose business. You're a corporation within the states. That's where it's like even in Nevada, it says articles of incorporation for a nonprofit corporation. Other states, it might say other different things, but IRS, who actually gives you the 501c3, the public charity designation, they have no term nonprofit. You're a tax code. That's all you are. You're a tax code.
I felt so important. We felt so important at a while, but we're just a tax code, right? Yeah.
You're a tax code, and it determines how your money is spent and how you receive it and the benefits that you receive from it. You can make as much profit as you want. It's how you spend the profits that is monitored. Okay. You know, some nonprofits are up in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Sure.
It's how they spend the money. So your goal is to make money, to have revenue streams, revenue centers, and to make as much money as possible so that you can serve your community.
Okay.
Versus serving your board of directors. The board of directors is always volunteer in a 501c3, well, in any nonprofit. All boards are volunteer positions. Now, that does not mean they can't get paid for services.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, if they are a program manager or something, they can get paid. If they have a company, there's a method you go through it, you know, submit RFPs and go through the process of voting to hire that particular company. There's ways, you know, that their services can be either reimbursed or hired as a consultant / company to do services for it. But technically, as a board member, they can't receive a paycheck or a stipend.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing you saying, though, is that the difference between a nonprofit and a regular for-profit is that the money that you're making isn't solely for your board of directors.
It's for the community. The money you make is for programs and services back into the community. In a for-profit corporation, the profits go to shareholders. Boards get paid, or, you know, they have shares and profit from it. And the board's role in a for-profit, they're legally bound to protect the profits of that company. Yeah. Unless it's a B corporation, a benefit corporation, which just came into being in Nevada in 2014, where it's legal to have what is called a benefit corporation, which is a hybrid of a nonprofit and a corporate or a business, C or S corporation. They have been given legal ability to use profits not for stakeholders, but to put them back into community so they can have a cause related to their purpose. Sure. So that's what a benefit corporation is. Before, boards, if it was just an S or C corp, they would have to get board approval to do any community service and take profits and put it into the community. They have to have approval. So that's how it has changed, that designation, or how things have evolved with the nonprofit sector.
Well, that's interesting. Let me ask you a question. So since I get you myself for just a couple of minutes, I'm going to ask you, for-profit, nonprofit. And I know that from what I'm hearing, especially when it goes to chambers, is that they have a for-profit side and they have a nonprofit side. And so can you kind of give me kind of an overview of what that looks like?
Okay, absolutely, because that's exactly the issue I'm dealing with this Northern Nevada. They were applying for the 501c3 but the IRS is saying that they're a 4 or a 6. Now, there's different formulations. Let's just, for example, because I'm really familiar with their setup, the Henderson Chamber. They have the chamber, which is the 501c6, and then they have the Chamber Foundation, which is the 501c3. It is the charitable arm of the chamber. Mm-hmm. So you, with chambers of commerce, because IRS is very specific about the roles that you can play, because and they will try and drop you, especially if you talk about business, community revitalization, rebuilding, historical, anything that's says business and how you're they want to put you into the 4 or 6 category. They don't
Sure.
want to give you that 501c3.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't have a 501c3 arm of your organization. It's just 2 separate ways. Like your golf tournament
Yeah.
would be, donations would benefit the Bbcc Foundation.
Okay.
Versus the Chamber of
The
Commerce.
chamber itself. Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yes, chambers generally have a charitable arm, which is a separate entity and a foundation.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And they both have different uses, I would assume.
Yes.
So one is basically for the charitable side, basically,
Yeah.
in a general kind of way of putting it, and the other one's really specific to the business side of it.
Building capacity in the business community. Right.
Yeah.
The foundation would be, let's say, a business was struggling, you could give a grant to that business as an award.
Okay.
But generally, most of the funds would be going to put on, let's say you're trying to build up, the Sahara Corridor,
Okay.
or a different area that you might give art walk sponsored by the Black Chamber, Bbcc Foundation sponsoring, the annual Art and Wine Walk.
I like the way that sounds. That's very nice. Yes.
Even your golf tournament, or the foundation is sponsoring the golf tournament to support children it could be scholarships for the children or siblings of business owners. You see how you take it and shift it so you're still supporting who your audience is.
Yeah.
But it's from a charitable point of view.
Very interesting. Huh. Okay. Well, and I guess it goes back to what what most nonprofits ask about are basically fundraising.
Yeah.
And grant writers and stuff like that.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, I have a friend. She started now. I would tell you the church, but I won't tell you the church. But they one of the larger churches in the valley, and they have a grant. They have a basically a resource side of the church, which most churches have.
Mm-hmm.
This particular one was in a separate office. They had all kinds of stuff that they worked on in there, teach you how to do all kinds of computer stuff. But they actually but their biggest thing was really writing grants. And that's
for outside community, or?
So the grants were to fulfill, for the costs of what it would take for the resource area. So like I said, they would do computer stuff, they would do job training, that kind of stuff.
Because most churches,
Mm-hmm.
those that are labeled as churches under the code, are not eligible for grants. If you read the guidelines, almost 99% of the grants that says churches are not eligible. So they might also have a 501c3 foundation arm attached to their church.
I think that's what they had.
Yeah.
Because that was really, they had 5 or 6 girls. That's all they did, is write grants all day long. And as far as I know, unless something has changed, that's all they still do.
Oh,
but that really, they were doing a fantastic job of training and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm a member of the Grant Professionals Association. The thing is, I don't promote it that much because I don't enjoy writing grants. I know how to write grants. And my biggest problem is most of the organizations that come to me, they don't understand what they need. And they think, it's just to write this grant. Well, no. Do you have your case statement? Do you have your history? Do you have your program abstract and dialogue written out? And all of that is a part of putting together all of the pieces you need to actually write the grant.
Yeah.
And you have to have documentation. And so when I said, it takes me all of this time to write all of this stuff, and so all of my work is front end. It's putting all of the stuff you need in order to even apply for the grant. So that's why I do a program called the grant writing process.
Yeah.
And no, it's the grant process, because writing actually is just a very, very small element of it. It's going over all of these details that you have to have in place before you even start looking for a grant.
I know it's almost like you actually need to have a separate division within your organization, if that's where you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they focus on, because they would know, or they would be able to help the organization actually put all that stuff together, so that you're not saying, and it seems to me like, just like anything else, if you're, let's say you are a cancer research facility, and they, and I happen to know one guy, and the reason why I say it is because I know a guy who does that. And that's really what he spends most of his time doing, is looking for grants and writing grants. He likes it. But
yeah. I have access to Grant Station as a part of my membership with associate, and so I can make, you know, research, and that's what it is. A lot of it is spending all of the pre-work, because you technically you should have a database of all of the grants that you are eligible for. That
of the 3 million grants that are.
Well, no, but
like
there's what, yeah, but well, you're not eligible for all of those. There's certain keywords that you need to, like, you can go to the Flamingo Library and go and sit on the Foundation Center's database, but you have to know how to enter certain keywords and and how to filter out all of those that have very specific guidelines, even though it might say middle school youth at risk. There's a whole bunch of other criteria that you have to also dig deeper into that.
And it kind of filters everything else.
And then you create a spreadsheet, literally an Excel sheet. And the ones I use are mapped out by calendar year, because grants are due at different times of the year. So those that are due in March, so you would put it on your calendar in December. You give yourself 3 months leeway to start building out what that grant will look like if you're going to apply for it.
Sure.
So you have this flowing chart of all of these different grants. Yes, and that's a job that 2 or 3 people could spend many days and hours just development. And that should be in what is called the development department. Your development officer and development, they're looking at funding, they're looking at resources, they're looking at all of the different pieces that come together.
I would think that any larger organization that's been around for a little while, that's probably what they have.
I was a part of the development department at the Springs Reserve. I worked with the development department at Nevada Ballet. And so I was like corporate representative rep for the Springs Preserve in the development. So all I focused on was corporate sponsorship.
Sure. Yeah.
Just laser focus.
Well, yeah, because it would be like anything. And, you know, I do a lot of political stuff. And so you're always looking for that bundler, you know, that person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that person knows everybody. They know where the money's at.
I call them influencer, or, you know, the influencer.
Yes.
The influencers that
that
can sort of walk into a room and go, hey, how you doing?
And they've already got their check out. They got the checkbook out because they know that this person, but you need that person, and they're well worth their money, because guess what? They could make or break your organization.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a tip about that. You don't want to pay those type of people, because then they come across very unauthentic. Those are the type of people you want to nurture. You want to build relationships and get them on either advisory boards or committees, or actually involved in the organization. So they come at it from a point of heartfelt work versus, this is my paycheck. Okay, I got to go talk about this organization. I mean, the slight shift in attitude.
Yes.
Well, you know, I got to go to this because I got to get some money. So I can get my paycheck.
I got to get my money.
I got to get my, you know.
Sure.
But if they're coming from a heartfelt centered support of who you are, so those are the relationships that you nurture.
Yeah. I like that. I really do. Yeah. But definitely that kind in concept, that's really what you want for your organization.
Yeah.
We're working with right now. We just got a relationship with Bank of U.S. Bank, and that's why I
Okay.
keep looking at my computer, because they keep sending me stuff here, which is really cool. Um, but I noticed that the organizations that we've been talking to a lot all have that in common. They have a
Hmm.
really deep funding base, and they're all nonprofits, but they're able to do what they do basically because they've created this funding apparatus that I think most nonprofits really need to nurture. So let me ask you a question. I guess comes with the question: what is probably one of the biggest things that nonprofits need to focus on um, moving forward, because it's going to play a part in their overall success as a business?
Building their board, building the
Okay.
board. Um, and nonprofits are synonymous with having, oh yeah, my mom's on the board, my brother, yeah, but he's in Ohio and I don't really see him, and but I needed these names of people to go on this board. Those that I see that really evolve as an organization have taken the time to really think about who they want to ask to be on their board,
Okay.
uh, who they reach out and talk to about, telling their message and their story. They look for those individuals that align with or have shown that they support those types of causes, and then
Mm-hmm.
they align with them. Then there's the opposite of that whole grassroots movement, which is very, very big and powerful in this
Mm-hmm.
current era, all the way back from, I'll say, 2008 with the whole grassroots give $5 type campaign, blah, blah, blah. And, it works across many types of nonprofits. It works in the nonprofit sector, in the political sector, because a lot of people have to just feel as if they're needed. And when you say, we need your $5, they go, okay, here it is. I've done something good. It's when they felt left out that where the giving range started at $250, 300, well, I can't do that. Right. I can't do that. I'm not in that league.
Mm-hmm.
But they created a place for everybody to participate.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to create, a space for everybody.
Yeah.
And that $5 and that what I call the grassroots, and that's why whole crowdfunding, GoFundMe, all of those different platforms exploded and became so popular,
Sure.
because it was a platform for the $1, $2, $3 types of donations.
Yeah, and that's
And
important. Yeah.
and
So definitely building the board is one of those big things, because I look at the Black Business Chamber the same I would look at my regular business
mhm,
that I had, in that if I in retrospect there are certain things I would have done,
yeah,
and so when I look at the BBCC I go, okay, now I need to apply that same mindset into this what we're doing. Okay, so what should we do now that we know is going to pay dividends in the future? And that's, I guess, moving forward for
mhm.
any nonprofit is probably got that should be probably one of those driving
I
questions.
bet you if you ask most nonprofits, unless they're the really big ones,
Mm,
ask them if they have a business plan, and
okay.
and they say, but we're a nonprofit. So, you know,
Yeah. Sure.
you still need a business. Well, we no, they fall back on, well, we just want to do this,
Hmm.
but how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
It's not about just wanting to do. If you want to do that, then you need to create a plan so that you can be successful
Yeah.
doing that. And
Sure.
but people look at like the Philantrepreneur Foundation. Our goal has been education from day one. It is, we are here to help give you knowledge, and so that we don't have to sit there and babysit you. That's not our goal, is to come in. I've had many people, well, come, don't you want to be on our board? No, no, that's not what I want to do. I will train you, and
Hmm.
it goes back to the saying, you what did you teach a man to fish and he'll live
That's
a
right.
lifetime?
Sure, sure.
I'm trying to teach you to fish or
Yeah.
whatever. I can change it to any analogy, but
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want you to be dependent on me. I want you to reach your full potential
Hmm.
by gaining the knowledge that you need. And
Sure.
that knowledge has to be ongoing. I'm a proponent or a student of total quality management, which is the whole Kaizen and Edward Deming approach, that it's continuous improvement that has to
Hmm.
happen, and that you're constantly assessing, rethinking, tweaking, and then starting over and rewrote, coming back again to with the next cycle. And each
Yeah.
time you're leveling up, going to the next level.
Next level. Sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
And that's what we feel like we're at. That's where we're at on this whole thing too. It seems like I guess so the old saying that says you don't know what you know until you
you
know
don't,
what,
you don't
that's
know.
one of those things, right?
Yeah, and
Every
that's
time I look around the corner, I go, son of a gun,
yeah,
I got to learn some more because
yeah.
there's more. I
Well,
know
and
there's more around that
that's
corner.
why I picked the term years ago, nuts and bolts nonprofit training.
Hmm.
Because it was a mindset of those that were coming to training that, oh, I already know that part. And then when they started getting into discussions, oh, well, I didn't know that. Oh, well, I didn't know that. It's still you need the nuts and bolts of all of it in order to put it, no matter where you are. If you've been in nonprofits for years, I mean, I have literally talked to people who, well, I've been with this nonprofit for 20 years. And so then I'm being snarky. I'll ask them a very pointed question,
Yeah.
and they won't answer. And I'm like, oh, you so you worked with this nonprofit for 20 years and you don't know that question.
Sure. Sure.
But it just sort of gives me a measure of
Mhm.
where no matter how long you're there, that there's still learning to be done, whether
Sure.
you're brand new or, oh, and so I'll just stay out there plugging away, throwing information out there.
Yeah.
And we might call this training next level. No, there's already a company out there like that, but
Yeah. I think they've got that. Yeah. Yeah.
uh, pump up
Well,
or something. But
yeah, yeah. Well, I think as we start getting the word out more and more about this, because I know you've got people who regularly attend your nuts and bolts training. Um, the folks at the BBCC are, as they learn more and more about you, I'll tell you, I think they're going to understand that they need this. I mean, they really do, because we've got quite a few nonprofits in the organization already, and we want to definitely reach
yeah,
out to them and let
well,
them
it's
know.
even for people who aren't nonprofit organizations, because most or a lot of business people serve on boards. And
Hmm.
that's how I'm such a crossover. That's why the Philantrepreneur name is so significant, because
Yeah,
yes, we deal with philanthropy, but we come from it with the entrepreneurial mindset.
yeah,
And most boards are filled with business people, everyday people that I'm just trying to get them so that they can serve their passion better. And so it's yes, it's nonprofit training, but it's for the business community.
yeah,
And that's how the service can be, valuable and enlightening, no matter whether or not they're a nonprofit entity themselves or they serve on the boards.
yeah,
And some people just want to learn, well, how can I serve? Okay, so
yeah. Sure.
I can do a session on that. And that's why it's important to get some feedback. Okay, so what do you want to know? Because all of these sessions will be taped and recorded.
Hmm.
I believe that I'm really loving the virtual format, and we're transitioning a lot, I should say 95% of our programming to virtual in terms of what we deliver. The
Sure.
training center will be used to train other presenters, and they can then record things over there. We have
Hmm.
set it up as a recording classroom with
Yeah.
the whiteboards and all of that. And so we have the green screens and things like that coming in, but that will be helping other presenters um, present their information, and can be recorded in that site, but then we can also use it to just distribute to our target audience.
Sure.
So I'm layering different things on top of each other.
You got such great stuff going, such great content. Let me ask you one more question, because I know you've got a lot of stuff you're going to be working on today too. Do you feel like, because you've come, originally you're from where?
Detroit. Michigan. Yep.
Michigan. And you worked at UNLV for a while and helped on of there. Did you see a large shift in the whole cosmopolitan sophistication coming from the East Coast, Midwest to Las Vegas? And do you think that is there, has it been a positive or not as positive? I don't want to say negative.
Okay, and I'll go back. Okay.
Yeah.
Detroit is considered very cosmopolitan, very, sophisticated, but yet country on the other. But in terms of business involvement and the nonprofit sector, they were very advanced and very East Coast, as I call them.
Sure.
When I moved here, I almost went into culture shock. No, I should say I went into culture shock.
I was going to say you did.
on many different levels, because I had been in the education sector for 32 years. I had taught for 28 and then went on the state level and was a state consultant and doing educational training, just a lot of different things. And then came here, and just the sophistication of the educational system, the acceptance of certain things. Then when I started doing my nonprofit classes and really was face to face with the level of their knowledge, I really had to say that this area is about 20 years behind what other regions are accomplishing.
Yeah. Now, are you talking about just in Nevada, or are you talking about regionally?
Nevada. I'm going to say Nevada.
Yeah.
And the reason, and there's data to support this. There was a book that came out by Robert Putnam called Bowling Alone, and it did a research on what is called social capital. That is how communities engage in their community. Social capital, the value of it. And there were only 5 states that ranked less than 3% social capital for their
community. We weren't in there, of course.
No. Okay, if you want to say that.
Gosh, all right.
But there were 4 that were deep south: Louisiana, South Carolina, over that Kentucky, and I believe Tennessee, and then Nevada.
And it jumped the entire country and landed in Nevada.
And it was very unusual because we're surrounded by some of the highest states with social capital: California, Arizona, Utah. But yet we were stuck. And how I assessed it, because they didn't dig deep into why each community was like that. I assessed it because of how the wealth came to Nevada: gaming, casinos, things like, and the gaming industry literally gave out money. And so nonprofits early on, I should say, really never had to learn how to be effective. They just put out their hands and, this year we're getting so-and-so. How are we going to spend it this year? Sure. Now, I might be being very simplistic in it, but it is a key factor in the maturity of the organizations in this region. Okay. Have we made strides? Definitely, especially after the big crash of 2008, because that in that time period, over 2,700 nonprofits closed in Nevada alone.
Wow.
Because they had no backup plan, they had no revenue streams, they had no system in place for ongoing sustainable fundraising.
Isn't that fun? Yeah, we've got a long way to go. A long way to go, but it's encouraging though. I mean, it really is, because I know that with people like you who are going to be here, who are invested in the state, that we've got a chance.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well, fortunately, I mean, I was contacted, or had a conversation last Monday, in fact, and the whole conversation was, how I can serve the nonprofit community moving forward. And they've asked me to put together a proposal of how to help them shift to virtual formats
Okay.
and how to deliver my program to them virtually. And so we're putting together a whole virtual platform to reach the nonprofits that are trying to come out of the other side of the pandemic. I call it the game changer, because it forced, okay, and I'll close after this, but
Sure.
it forced a lot of businesses and individuals to truly immerse themselves and explore the whole virtual scenery or landscape.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
A year ago, I was approaching businesses about doing a virtual conference, and it was no, we're this face-to-face type communication. We have to do it this way. We like the live events, blah, 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 blah. Uh-oh, shut down the world. I bet you scrambled to become innovative and have that virtual presence all of a sudden.
Sure.
And so now they are understanding, not that they have to get rid of that live platform, but they also need to have the virtual to enhance it or to be another layer. And so that's another reason why I'm putting out the second edition of my book, Wow 'em, Webinar Secrets. It's because, okay, now that you understand this, here's how to make them effective and value driven. And so it is really doing me a favor. I hate to say, the pandemic actually did me a favor because it forced people to understand the language or the story I was telling.
Yeah.
And so now I'm sort of doubling back and coming out. See, I told you so.
That's good. Yeah, I know, that's true.
And I see a lot of exciting things. That's why I said we're going to be shifting probably to about 95% virtual programming, because that's where I was headed already. But it wasn't. Maybe I was ahead of my time.
You are. You're a visionary.
So now all of this hopefully will come to. I have people reaching out to me to let's implement. Let's do that. And that's really exciting. And so being able to offer to the Black Business Chamber of Commerce support to its members or non-members, but anybody that needs it. I say it's anything you need to know about nonprofits, please reach out. Send me an email. My email is very easy to remember, vboyd@drvictoriaboyd.com.
Easy enough to remember. Okay.
So, and I'll throw it up on the chamber Facebook page and all of that stuff, so people can reach out after they listen to this video or session. We want your questions. We want your input. This whole session was going to be feedback on what your needs are, so that then we as an organization can move forward to serve you and not just throw things out there randomly. Oh, well, let's talk about this week. We want to make sure that we're addressing what their issues are, or it might not even be an issue. They might just want peer support. I have a group called the Philantrepreneur Peer Circle. That's what they might want this to be, where people can just bring questions in and find out if they're doing something right. Let's move forward by their input, and then we can really sit down and say what this will all be about. But we'll be here the second Tuesday of every month from noon to 1, our lunch and learn. I had a peach here, but I finished eating it.
And you could have your lunch. Well, I had my Dr. Pepper, so.
Okay, I had a peach, but they could sit down at wherever they are, at their desk, in their car, and join us from 12 noon to 1 o'clock as a service of the Chamber of Commerce and the Philantrepreneur Foundation. So we're here to serve.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boyd. I really appreciate it. And looking forward to your next session too.
Okay, and that will be in July, the second week, Tuesday at 12 noon. So signing off now. Hope everybody's having a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great one. All right.